Hi, welcome to a demonstration of the iForm iPad survey apps Desert Archaeology uses. I'll be walking through things on the iPad, and this video should show what I'm doing. So I'm going to begin by opening up the iForm app. As you see, it comes up. We have 5 main options here. Before we look at the individual forms, I want to touch on a couple things. Up in the upper corner, there's a gear-shaped icon. I just tapped that. You see that brings up and it shows you your login name. I'm using a different one than you'll be using. This is also, most importantly, you see the sync login button. You tap that and that will save all of the records from the iPad up to the server. You need to do this manually when you're at a good stopping point in your work. It does not happen automatically. So looking here, there's 5 different forms. To begin with, the iForm help app is just kind of a documentation type thing. It has a lot of explanation of how the iForm app works. If you get stuck, you can read through this. I'm going to close it now by using the little X icon in the upper left corner. The practice using iPad sketches form is simply a way for you to try learning how to use the iPad sketching, with your finger. It doesn't save it to any of the survey forms. It's just a doodle pad, if you will, to practice. Now, to get to the actual survey applications, I'm going to start with the Isolated Occurrences app. So I'm going to open this up by tapping on the icon. Alrighty, now let's kind of look down the screen. At the very top of the screen, you see the field GPS isolate ID. That's automatically generated. The first letter is different for each iPad. The second letter indicates that it's an isolate. And the number is a sequentially assigned thing. It starts at 1 and goes up within on each iPad. Moving down to the actual fields, project. You see it's preset to USFS2. If you click Other, a new field where you can type in the other project code shows up. Below that you see a site identifier field. That's just if you're doing an I/O and you later realize it's part of a site. There's an alt GPS ID field. That's left there just in case something goes wrong with the field GPS isolate ID that's generated by the iPad. It should work, but just in case, this is a failover. So moving down, recorder, you'll see there's an asterisk, meaning it's a required field. Tap 1. If you pick Other, there'll be a place where you can type in a different person. I'm just going to choose Rob on this one. Age culture category, this is just a grouping variable, so we can easily summarize things. I'm going to say prehistoric. This option doesn't affect anything else. It's just a way to group this stuff. Isolate or concentration. That's mostly for the purposes of coordination with the GPS mapping. If it's an isolate, they're going to take a point shot. If it's a concentration, they're going to do a polygon. Now, if you do select a concentration, a couple fields will show up. You see diameter, length, and width. That's for you to measure in the field the dimensions if you don't want to just rely on the polygon size. If you choose isolate, those fields disappear. Next, and this is important, the I/O type. If it's an artifact, a feature, both, or something that isn't features or artifacts. This is important because if you touch the artifact one, you'll see the artifact list subform appear. If you touch the feature one, you have the feature list option. If you have both the artifact list and the feature list are available. If you have other, neither are available, and in this case you would need to use the description to type in what the I/O represents. But going back as an example for this walkthrough, I'm going to select artifact. So as I scroll down, I go to the artifact list subform. This is going to open a second form, and this is the same form that's used in the site form. Now, starting at the top again, you'll see the GPS artifact ID, that's the I/O identifier, plus an A for artifact, and then it starts numbering 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. You see the alt GPS artifact ID, that's only if the GPS ID fails again. You should not need to use this field. Context. This is just another way of grouping the artifact records or associating it with another recorded thing. General just means it's just an artifact. The other options are if it's in a named concentration that you've recorded on the site, if it's in a sample unit, or if it's associated with a particular feature. In any of these cases, you use the context notes field below to type in what sample unit or what concentration or what feature is associated with. However, in most cases, if you leave it on general, you don't have to specify anything else. Next, this is important and it's required, artifact manufacturing age category. This it refers to when the object was made. So even if you're talking about an Apache glass projectile point, the glass was manufactured non-aboriginally, so that's how you would record it. For this example, I'm going to show you the aboriginal field that populates the artifact class field. Below you can see your options. If you choose non-aboriginal, you get some different choices of what artifact class. I'm going to go back to aboriginal for this. Here you see ceramic, flakestone, groundstone, etc. Now depending on which one of these artifact class options you pick, you will see different choices below for additional fields. For ceramics, you see something that's an artifact type, basically where, you see a ceramic shape. If you know the ceramic type and it's a name type, you'll have to type it in. We do not have that coded. There's too many ceramic types. Flakestone, Flakestone, you see artifact type, then you see a flakestone raw material. There's also a flakestone color field, which you don't need to use for every raw material, but if it's relevant, enter it. And please take note in flakestone color, if you select the multi option on the far end, that brings up another flakestone color menu, which allows you to list multicolored materials. I'm going to bring that up. It's a multi-select option, so if you have an artifact that's red and tan banded shirt, you select those three options and click select. Now you see it's tan, red, banded, striped. Now normally most materials are going to be single color and it's going to be easy. You just click the individual color, but this accommodates more exotic materials. Going back up, I see I didn't select the artifact type or the raw material. I'm going to fix that. As we scroll down, you see the comments field. If for whatever reason what you need to record isn't available in the codes, then you can type it in here. Use this for whatever, if it's an artifact type that's not there, if it's a material that's not there, or if it's just additional information you need to record, use this field. Now going down, we see the quantity field. You see yes or no for quantity estimated. By default it's no. And then there's a quantity field below with a clicker, which you hit the plus to go up, you hit the minus to go down, and and this is used for relatively small numbers of artifacts. Now, if you are estimating something, maybe there's 500 plainware shirts and you're recording it on this form, then you can use the quantity field to just type in a number instead of having to hit the plus thing too many times. We'll choose whichever one of these is populated when we analyze the data. Lastly, there's an option for taking an artifact photograph. Now if you use this button here, it will associate that photograph with this artifact record. We'll know that the photograph is of the variables that you've recorded here. Lastly, there's an option for drawing a sketch, which, you know, it's completely optional. You don't have to do this. One possible way you might use it is if you take a photograph, you can use the sketch option to annotate the photograph. Anyway, to keep this reasonable in length, I'm going to just submit this record. So now we've come up with the list view for the artifact record of our first I/O. Now, if you wanted to record another artifact record for the I/O, maybe it had ceramics and flakes or something, you could do that by hitting the plus here in the corner. It'll bring up another row of the artifact thing. Now, in this case, we don't need to do that, so I'm going to click the X button in the upper left corner and close this and go back to the list view because I'm done. My isolate was merely the 500 shirt flakes or whatever. So I'm done with this thing, so now I click the arrow in the upper left corner. This goes back to the I/O form we're on. Now we're back. All we really need to do here is hit submit, but I want to just touch on another couple things on this form. Now, there's another option to take a photograph, which isn't going to be linked to any specific features or artifacts that you've recorded. It's just linked to this isolate. There's no real need to do both, but it's just there for melody. Same with the sketch thing. So now I'm going to click submit, and our first IO record has been recorded. Now I'm going to go ahead and make another isolate record here. Now we're still on pack. I'm going to say it still be Rob. I'm going to say we're still prehistoric. We're still going to be an isolate. But this time I'm going to say it's a feature. So now the feature list subform is available. So I'm going to tap on that and open it up. And this works similar to the artifact one. There's a lot of fields. Let me just start at the top. Your GPS feature ID. It has the isolate identifier, XI2. And then since this is the first feature we've recorded, it's F1. Again, there's the alternate GPS identifier. If something goes wrong with the auto-populated one, you should not need to use this. Feature number is just the last part of the feature ID. Again, they're assigned sequentially within each site or within each isolate. There's a locus or concentration where if, again, this feature is within a locus or concentration you've identified, you can type it in there. Normally you leave that blank. Feature age category. Prehistoric, Eurohistoric, Native Historic, Indeterminate, or Multiple. I need to fix the multiple thing. Basically, this, like with the artifact class, depending on which one of these, you get different feature class choices. The multiple thing will be removed. That's an error. So prehistoric, let's call it a structure. And we're going to call it a masonry room. You see there's a room count field. You need to type in the number of rooms for this feature. This room count only appears if there's a structure selected in feature class. So I'm going to go ahead and say that there's 2. You may notice this is a text field instead of a number field, so that it will allow you to say things like 2 to 3 or estimated or be, I understand that room counts are not always set in stone. Scroll down, you see the feature type other. Here's a way where you can type in, if it's a feature type that just doesn't fit in my coding indexes, type in the name here. If you encounter a common feature that's not on the coding list while you're in the field, let me know with an email or a call or a text, and I can add it to the codes while you're in the field. Feature condition, this is required. You see the asterisk. It's just basically a, feature condition. Here's another separate feature comments field. You can make any additional comments. Quantity is by default set to 1, but you can go in there and edit that if you need to change it. Scrolling down, there's length, width, and height and depth. There's also this GPS dimensions for length and width. If you know the feature is going to be mapped on the GPS and we can get the dimensions later, you can just click yes. That hides the other comment field, the other length and width fields, but still lets you record depth if you need to. And then you can see there's a feature photograph option. It brings up the camera app that lets you take a picture, and it will link it with this feature number and feature identifier, so it's easy to sort together when we get back out of the field. Feature sketch, same as it is on the artifact sketch. It's completely optional, but it is there if you want to try messing with that. So we're done with this, I think. I'm going to click submit. And it's back. Now we're back here. If we had a second feature, we click the plus to add, and we're not going to do that, so we're going to click the back arrow in the upper left corner to go back to the isolated occurrence form. Again, we're looking down here. We are done. We didn't take any photos, but don't need to walk you through that. I'm going to click submit. And now we see we're back at the list view of the IO form. We've entered 2 IOs. You see the hourglass icon. That indicates that both of those records have been submitted. You've completed them, but they are not synced with the server yet. We have to manually sync with the server using the settings icon that we talked about right in the beginning of this video. I'm going to do one more example to show you another view here. Like, I'm going to not add anything to this one, I'm going to click submit. Now it's going to say form saved as draft because I didn't do any of the required fields. You see that, but I'm going to just click OK anyway to show you how this looks. I'm now going to click X to go back out of it. And now you see that's the one we just started at the bottom. See, it has a pencil icon. Pencil icon means it's been started, it's saved locally, but it's not complete and hasn't had submit clicked yet. So if you click that, it'll reopen and you can go in and finish it. I'm going to just close out again. Now, if you click on one of the ones with the hourglass icon, remember they've been submitted but not synced. It comes up in this grayed out format, and however, since it hasn't been synced, if you go up in the upper right corner and click Edit, it enables you to make changes. And you can go in and correct anything you need to or add to it. And then when you're done making your additions, you click Submit again, and it goes back out. It still shows the hourglass icon. Now, I'm going to go out and do one last thing here while we talk about the isolated occurrence form. I'm going to back out of it, and we're back out. Now you see it shows around that form that there's one record that is a draft state that's not ready to be submitted, and two that are ready to be synced and are ready to go. So I'm going to go up to the settings icon, the gear in the upper left corner, and I'm going to press Sync Log On. And now that I've pressed that, you'll see this message. It's uploading data from the isolated occurrence form. And it's checking if there's been any changes to the form. It says records uploaded for, synchronization successful, so we're golden. Now when we look at that isolated occurrence record again up there, you'll see there's no longer an hourglass, there's two check marks. There's a check mark with a 2 by it. And they have the check mark icon in the list view too. And the check mark means that it has been synced. And at this point, you cannot edit it. You can open it up again and view it, but you cannot edit it. You can just look at it. So I'm just going to close back out of this, and I'm going to take this opportunity to end this video so it doesn't get too long.